Hi, everyone. Stephanie Cook here, director at Couples Counseling ATL, joining today with several of our couples therapist staff and our wonderful client care coordinator, Camila. And just wanted to welcome anyone who might be watching this later to our discussion today of the book Permission to Feel by Mark Brackett, which is not only great for therapists. Thank you for the preview, Matthew. It's not only good for therapists. We most of us think that this is probably going to be a good read for just people in general, and many, especially of our clients who are looking to expand their knowledge on the importance of emotional intelligence and feelings and what we can do with that. So just to start off, again, this is meant to be for therapists who are reading this book, but it can also just be a primer to the book for therapists or for anyone else who is just looking to learn more about this book and might be interested in reading this book. We're going to start with just a basic overview of the book, but we want to spend most of this hour just a bunch of therapists nerding out and talking about a great book. And, what we liked about it, what we didn't, questions we might still have, recommendations for how this might be useful in the future. And so I think that I'll open it up to you guys, but the main takeaway for me when I read this was befriending your emotions, right? Like how critically important to us as humans our emotions are, and how long ignored and suppressed, and how hurt many of us have been by suppressing our emotions and not accessing our emotions, not expressing our emotions, not being able to read other people's emotions. Just the importance of emotion. It's a superpower that we all have. And if we can learn more about our own feelings, how to identify them, how to express them, we can be not only happier individuals, but we can also be better friends, spouses, parents. Any sort of relationship can be improved by having better awareness of our emotions. And now, anybody else? What would you say? Any key takeaways for you for this book?
Just to add to that, Stephanie, and not to get too woohoo with this, but something I've done in my own personal work is some shadow work, and a lot of shadow work talks about embracing the parts of your shadow self, the anger, some of those difficult emotions, anxiety. They all serve a purpose. They're all trying to tell us something, and I feel like Mark Brackett hit on that a lot within this book. We almost approach those emotions with a genuine curiosity. They're often trying to tell us something, and I'll defer to somebody else. But yeah, it reminded me a lot of some of my personal work that I've done.
Awesome. Thank you, Mandy. Thank you for sharing. Way to be vulnerable.
And I'll say that one of the big takeaways for me as well was I think the way he puts it is being an emotion scientist rather than an emotional judge. And I think the phrase "be curious, not judgmental" is a really good one here, right? The ability to take a look at your emotions and just say, like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what that's about. Both for yourself, but also for others, your friends, your family, your kids, your significant other. Being able to listen from a very non-judgmental place is sort of essential, especially in the early stages of emotional processing. Being able to at least put a little bit of a space in between the identifying of emotion and then the judgment of it. And I think at least in the work that I know that I do with a lot of my clients, that space, opening up that space, is a fairly large intervention. I think most of us are really used to being someone who feels something and then immediately has thoughts, feelings, and opinions about the emotions that we've had, or alternatively that our partner just had, and not being able to stay in that space of just being curious. And I don't think I can overstate how important a skill and how beneficial a skill that will be to anybody that reads the book and starts taking it on.
Thank you, Matthew. You know, that's a great takeaway. I think most of us would agree. That's being an emotional scientist, and everything else you said is some of the key takeaways from this.
And I like the, going off of what Matthew was saying, how the author gives those steps of how to do that. And so when recommending this to clients, we can really break it down, starting with those baby steps and seeing, you know, where do you thrive? Where do you struggle? And then in session, we can do a deeper dive or give further resources on how to strengthen those skills, which with each step. So I really like that.
I liked, as I was reading the book or hearing this, I liked how the author, when you dive deeper into his story and he was sharing this stuff, like his family was very unique, like the best way possible to say that. And I loved how it was I think it was his uncle who was the teacher, who literally just asked him one little question of like, how are you feeling? And I loved how that was just a turning point, because he was given that permission to like really express what he was feeling. And I love that even during my sessions and stuff, during the individual sessions, I always start out as like, so how are you doing? Or how are you feeling? And just like that, you see like people literally start crying, because they finally have that sense of, oh, this is a safe place, or nobody has really asked me, how am I feeling, or how am I doing? So I loved how they were saying that, and just saying something, whether it's to your partner or to your kids or anything like that, can be really like connecting. So that kind of just stood out to me in the book.
Thank you, Jessica. And sorry to anyone watching this if you can hear my children in the background. They're having a lot of emotions right now with the babysitter. So just real life, right? I do appreciate also how the author shares so much of his own personal experience about his history, and how for many of us, you know, he definitely had a unique family, but for all of us, you know, we're all unique in our own emotional experience. And I loved how he shared how especially some of the most difficult, painful, you know, negative feelings like depression or even being suicidal or rage, how befriending those is really critical to knowing yourself and to being able to navigate the world well. So the stories were really helpful. I think that I always appreciate a book that really brings it to life a little bit more with real stories. And he was being very vulnerable, and clearly you could see why this man is passionate about the work that he's doing, because he had such a tortured experience as a child with abuse and, you know, bullying and so many other things, and, you know, difficult dynamics with his parents. But I love for our clients, but for friends or other people I might recommend to this, that it's just a book. Like, I think I listened to it on Audible, so it was maybe like 7-8 hours. I don't know how long it took you guys to read, but it's a lot briefer to read that than it is to take an entire dialectical behavioral therapy program, which is all about, you know, mindful awareness of your emotions, learning how to express your emotions, regulate your emotions. You know, for many people might still need something more intensive like that, but I do think that for most people, this is a great primer, introduction to what are emotions, why are they so critical. You know, he has a great acronym. I don't know if you remember the RULER acronym. You know, he that kind of throughout his book is what, you know, he's trying to teach. If you were to do work with him more intensively, he'd start with R is for recognizing the emotion. U is for understanding the emotion. L is labeling the emotion. And then E is expressing the emotion, and R is regulating. And by regulating, you know, most therapists know what that means, but if you don't, it's all about, you know, being able to have some sort of influence or control in terms of like the intensity, right, that you might be feeling. So if you're really distressed, you know, being able to change that distress, right, a little bit, having a little bit of control, and not just being on a roller coaster that I didn't want to get on, but feeling like you do have some internal sort of power to be able to change that. So I really liked, just the specific examples and the acronym and how he led people through it in a much briefer, more compact way than you might with a full-blown mindfulness or emotional regulation course.